Okay, we're looking at linear models, and specifically we're going to go over using first differences to determine if something is linear or not linear. The very first thing we need to do is establish what is our independent and dependent, otherwise known as x and y axis. Okay? So let's say we're dealing with something, time and height. That's all the information they've given us. Time is in seconds, height is in meters. What is most likely our independent variable here? Hold on one second. So our independent variable, what do we think it is? Time? Why would we think it's time? Can something's height, something that we know its height, can it influence time? No. For instance, if it was our height or the height of a building, doesn't matter how tall or small we build it, it's not going to really influence the way we measure time, right? So time will be our independent variable, okay, which makes height our dependent, okay? So, and where do we normally put the independent and dependent? Independent is our x-axis, and our dependent goes on the y. So in order to do first differences, we first check our rate of change in our x. It needs to be consistent. And in this case, it is consistent. It is going up by +1 every time. So because it's going up by every time, we will check the rate of change of our y. And the way we do that using first differences is we take the second value and subtract the first. Very similar to what we had done yesterday. Okay, so 55 subtract 60, this is going to be our first difference, is going to give us -5. We then take 40 and subtract 55. What is that going to give us? -15. And finally, we take 15, subtract 40. And what do we get in this case? -25. Are the first differences the same? No. So because they're not the same, this is not linear. Okay? In order for us to have a linear relationship, our first differences need to be the same. Okay? Let's move to our second example. Earnings versus hours. What do we think is our independent variable here?
Hours.
Hours would be our independent, okay? Which makes this our x-axis, and therefore earnings are our y. So what's the first thing we do when checking?
First differences.
We got to check something on the x-axis before we can go about doing that. Something about the, yes, we got to check the rate of change of our independent. Is it consistent? Okay, so it's consistent, so we can do first differences of the y. Now this is on the opposite side of the chart. Doesn't mean we can't still do first differences over here, okay? So we'll find first differences. We still take the second number and subtract the first. 40 subtract 0 will give us... Good.
You were writing 0, sir?
I was writing 0. Then we take the second one, 80, subtract 40, what do we get? Not 0, good. And then 120, subtract 80. Exactly. Okay, so are the first differences the same? Yes, so that means this is a linear relationship. Okay? It's very important that you're able to define what's independent and dependent. Okay? Making sure that independent is consistent, and then take first differences. If the first differences are the same, it's linear. If they're different, it is not linear.